Morning, everyone. My name's Jackie Suter. I'm Senior Marketing Insight Manager at Visit Scotland. One of the areas I particularly focus on is consumer attitudes and behaviour around travel, and especially travel to Scotland. Through the crisis, one of the areas we wanted to measure is consumer sentiment, especially how that sentiment is changing and affecting people's propensity to travel domestically within the UK. That's what I'm going to cover today. So let's just look at the background and the methodology to the study. I've been working with the other national tourist boards of Visit England and Visit Wales, and we were all keen to understand the effects that COVID-19 had on domestic intent to travel, as well as the barriers and concerns that people had. So we set up a weekly tracker which started in the middle of May and will run to the middle of August. The study has a nationally representative sample, approximately 1,750 people per week, and that includes a boost of 250 Scotland residents a week. So we should hopefully have about 1,000 Scots residents over a month's period. When we asked people about their holiday intentions, we wanted them to focus in on two areas to try and estimate the demand we may get. Those two time periods are the main summer period, which we've defined as June to September, and then later in the year, so October 2020 onwards. And we will look at that data in this presentation. The other important thing to say is the fieldwork for this particular presentation ran between the 1st and 12th of June, and I'll tell you in a minute what the key dates and announcements were in that period. Before we start, I thought it was worth having a look at the key dates for when the fieldwork for this particular presentation was happening. So when consumers were being asked the questions, what was in the back of their minds? And one of the challenges we've had working together as national tourist boards is obviously restrictions have been different in each nation. So we've had to tread quite carefully on how we analyse all the results. So for Scotland, on the 28th of May, we entered phase one of the recovery plan. And Nicola Sturgeon announced the lifting of lockdown restrictions so we could meet another household outside. We could also go to parks and public areas and meet one other household. But we weren't allowed to travel more than a 5-mile radius. However, in England, the lockdown restrictions were eased a couple of weeks earlier than that, and there was also talk around English tourism businesses being able to open on 4th of July. And of course, just a few days ago, Boris Johnson actually confirmed that they were hoping to open on the 4th of July, subject to all the checks being met. The other significant thing that came into force was the quarantine laws from the 8th of June. So obviously anybody entering or re-entering the UK would have to self-isolate for 14 days, which I think put paid to a lot of people's plans for going abroad if they had those plans to start with. So the next major report we'll be doing will be on the 15th to 26th of June fieldwork. And obviously we've had quite a lot of announcements during that time, and that will be published on VisitScotland.org as soon as we can do so. The UK level reports go up each week, the week after fieldwork, so you can have a look there. I'll give you the links at the end. We're now going to have a look at what key metrics we're going to cover in the presentation today. The first thing we're going to look at is the general sentiment of UK consumers. What is the mood of the nation? How confident are people feeling in being able to book holidays and short breaks? And if they are confident, when do they think they'll take those trips? Whether that's going to be in the summer or whether it's going to be later on in the year. We'll also look at where in the UK they are planning to go, as well as what accommodation they're planning to use and what transport they're thinking of to try and get to their destination, as well as how they are actually going to book their holidays. And finally, we'll have a look at the risks and barriers. What are the things that are stopping people, or what are things people are uneasy about right now? And then we'll look at the support they needed. What are they expecting accommodation providers to put in place so that they can take their trip safely? As I've just mentioned, we were really interested to find out what the mood of the nation is and how confident people were feeling about booking holidays and breaks. So we're going to look at data for both UK residents and Scotland residents on this subject. Taking the nation's mood first then, we asked people how they were feeling on a scale of between 0 and 10, where 0 is very negative and 10 is very positive. And you can see on the left-hand side of the slide that people's mood across the UK is very average with a score of 6.6. And that's similar amongst Scots residents as well. However, a small proportion, which is 16% of Britons and 13% of Scots, are feeling very positive. And we do know that some people are actually finding happiness during the lockdown. We feel their quality of life has actually improved. However, there is an increasing minority, and we've seen this increase over the past few waves, of people who are scoring their mood as between 0 and 4. And that is probably because of the uncertainty that the future may hold for some people. And we're constantly hearing about the economic effects of the crisis, as well as the major effect of job losses on people's livelihoods. If we look at the graph of the right, which backs up that story, it asks whether people think the worst has passed or whether the worst is yet to come. And similarly to the mood of the nation, 3 in 10 people are feeling the worst is over. The peak of the pandemic has passed and things can really only get better. However, at the bottom of the graph in red there, you can see that there is again an increasing proportion of people who are thinking that the worst may be still to come. And that probably does tie in with economic uncertainty, but also we're hearing in the media of a possible second wave of the virus. And I think there's a lot of media stories that are playing heavily on people's minds right now. The information on this slide shows what people's expectations are for when things will return close to normal. And what we have seen since the beginning of the study is the time period for things being normal is lengthening. Initially, people thought that things would return to normal much quicker, but now there is a realisation setting in that it might take much longer than that. And for Scots residents, shown there in yellow, this is probably a more pessimistic view than that of the rest of the UK. That might be because of restrictions being slower to be lifted in Scotland, but certainly 42% of Scots are expecting normality by December 2020, with a huge proportion not expecting normality until 2021, a quarter of which are expecting it later in 2021. We'll now have a look at how confident people are in their ability to take a UK short break or holiday. And if you look at the graph, you can see that at the left-hand side, confidence in June right now, or when the fieldwork was undertaken, was very low indeed. There were very few people who felt confident enough to go on a holiday. You can see as time moves on that proportion does increase, although it has to be said that people are more likely to be fairly confident as time moves on than very confident. People are only starting to get very confident from January 2021. And you can see there that almost 3 in 10 UK residents and a quarter of Scotland residents feel very confident that they might be able to take a break at that time. So we've seen people aren't feeling particularly confident, but why is that the case? What are the barriers that are stopping them booking and taking trips right now? If we look at the top layer of boxes there for the June to September period, you can see that travel restrictions is still the #1 thing that people are telling us is a barrier for them. And that's probably not surprising, given that tourism restriction lifting is not going to happen until about 4th of July in England and the 15th of July in Scotland. So you can see there that it is a concern across the UK at this point in time. However, close on its heels really is a fewer opportunities to eat or drink out. And I think to a lot of people that is a key part of a holiday, And obviously this was pre any announcements that hospitality businesses could open. So for the UK as a whole, more than half say this is a big concern for them. And the third thing is actually concerns about catching the disease itself, which is obviously still in the back of people's minds. We know the virus is still out there, so people are obviously still thinking about that. Another interesting thing is 42% of UK and Scots residents also feel it's not responsible to travel during the June to September period. And, communities have obviously got to accept visitors, and I think a lot of people are very aware of that. If we look at October 2020 onwards and what people are saying the barriers might be, you can see that catching the disease actually comes to the fore again. People are thinking there won't be travel restrictions maybe as bad as they are now, but the disease is still out there, so that is a concern. Restriction on travel is still there, however, and it's still 40% of people are thinking that it might still be an issue in October. And obviously the fewer opportunities to eat or drink out, people are still thinking it might still be an issue depending on what happens over the summer. Now I'd like to turn and have a look at the people who have told us that they intend to come to Scotland on a prospective trip. And obviously these are the people we are really interested in. So who are we talking about when we talk about Scotland intenders? And of course, as with everything, nothing is straightforward as it seems. So we've defined Scotland intenders by anyone who has told us that they plan to visit Scotland for a future short break or holiday. However, these people might also be considering visiting somewhere else in the UK. They may be thinking, I might go to Scotland or I might go to Cornwall, for example. So we've wanted to have a look at people who are exclusively thinking about Scotland for a trip, Scotland and nowhere else. And we've called these Scotland exclusive intenders. And that is the people we will pretty much focus on for the rest of this presentation. And we also have a third set of people, Scotland residents. And obviously we know that Scotland residents will be vitally important at getting our tourism industry back up and running. So we are wanting to look at them as a separate group. I'd also like to say at this point that 56 Degrees Research Agency have done a Scotland resident study, which they're publishing monthly at the moment. They've done one for May and one for June, which actually has some really great information about Scotland residents as well. And I see both of these things as being complementary, and they are showing the same information about what Scotland residents are actually thinking at the moment. So let's have a more detailed look at who our Scotland exclusive intenders are. And for this, we've actually used 4-week data. So we've used the data from the very beginning of the study in mid-May, right till the latest data, which is mid-June. This is just to give us a really decent sample size with which to do the analysis. So we asked people where they were likely to stay in the UK on their next trip. You can see in the pie chart on the left there that the majority of people are planning on staying in England. That's not surprising given the size of the population who live there. However, 17% have said that they would like to go to Scotland or are considering Scotland. However, what we're interested in is those people who have exclusively said Scotland. And of that 17%, 70% said they only want to visit Scotland. And that is the group we're going to look at today. I'm going to have a look at the demographic profile of our Scotland exclusive intenders. And if you look at the map on the left, you can see there that a lot of them, as we would probably expect, are Scots themselves, with 53% saying that they will take a break in Scotland. However, there's also 38% coming from England, and that is pretty much distributed throughout the country. But we have got quite a large segment from the London area at 9%, and obviously the north of England, Cumbria, Northumberland and Yorkshire also make up a pretty big percentage there. And these are our traditional markets that we know love coming to Scotland. If we go to the pie chart on the right-hand side, we can have a look at the life stage segments. And you can see there that the older independent segments, so these are people that are 35 to 64 with no children, make up the biggest segment. And we know that these people do tend to make up a lot of our audience pre-COVID, so it's probably not surprising that they are still important to us going forward. Families as well make up a pretty big segment here with 26%. And these are parents 60 to 65 that have got children in the household. Our empty nesters, 65 plus with no children, make up 14%. We know that older people probably have more concern about travelling right now, given their age. But there's also quite a big segment here, 26% of pre-nesters who are 16 to 34 with no children. And you can see with the age breakdown in the middle there that they actually create quite a big segment for us, which is great that younger people are considering Scotland for a break. So for our Scotland intenders then, we wanted to look at how the pandemic has actually affected people financially. And you can see on the graph on the left that most people who are considering coming to Scotland, actually around 88% of them, are feeling okay financially. But there is, of course, a small 12% minority who have been hit hard by the pandemic. And it's interesting, some people, a very small proportion actually, although they've been hit hard, they still say they would rather spend money and while they have it, despite what the future might hold. But generally, people who are thinking about coming to Scotland are the ones that have not been affected financially, and that's probably what we might expect. If we look at the graph on the right, this is more about people's attitudes to money and spending money. And you can see there that the biggest proportion of people who are thinking about coming to Scotland, 39%, are naturally cautious with money. However, it's interesting because those who say that they're not naturally cautious feel that they need to be more cautious because of the pandemic and because they don't know what the future might hold. And even those who are naturally cautious have become even more cautious because of the pandemic. So I think there's a lot of fear out there about what the future might hold, and that is a consistent story throughout this tracking study. So let's look now at what the type of trip people are thinking of taking, and things like where do they want to go, where do they want to stay, how are they going to get there, and what do they want to do when they get there. This first slide in this section looks at when people are thinking about planning, booking, or going on their next UK short break or holiday. This graph is really busy. I'm sorry about that. You can probably look at the detail more after the webinar. But there's 3 important points I really wanted to make about this. If we look at the first graph about when people are thinking about planning, the blocks in grey actually show a decrease in people not knowing when they're going to take a holiday, which means more people are planning as the tracker moves on, which, although people are not feeling confident, as we saw earlier, there is signs of some confidence in there. If you look at the dark purple bars at the bottom, these are people who've already booked. You can see there's a 4 percentage point increase in people who've already planned and booked their trip, which is encouraging. It's the same picture when you move on to the next block of graph. When you're looking at booking, again, the dark purple, we can see that more people actually have booked. But the third important point I think I want to make here is about when people are anticipating going on their break. And although there are a proportion of people who are thinking about travelling in the summer, and a lot of these people might be families with kids on school holidays, the biggest proportion are thinking about travelling October onwards. And if you think back to that confidence graph, that's when we saw the confidence in people thinking that it'll be safer to travel actually started to rise. This is the same graph again, but this time this is looking at Scotland residents. Naturally, the pattern is the same as for the whole of the UK, which is encouraging because we're not actually finding that many differences between what Scots are thinking towards what the whole of the UK are thinking. So once again, if we look at the graph on the left, this is when people are thinking about planning their holiday. And we can see that mid-June, only 39% are saying they're not sure when they're going to plan but that is down from 44% in mid to end of May when people weren't sure. So that is an improving picture. And again, people who are saying they've actually booked something, you can see in the first and second graphs, has actually been increasing, which is encouraging. But as to when people are taking the trips they've planned and booked, it's quite clear to see that the majority of these people, of Scots, are thinking about travelling October onwards, with a small proportion thinking they will travel during the summer. So this slide is looking at the type of destination that people are thinking about for their next break. And once again, this shows the two different time periods that we'll be looking at. So the June to September period, and then the period from October onwards. And once again, we're looking at UK intenders, the people who are thinking about taking a break somewhere in the UK. Those are in the purple bars. And we've got our Scotland exclusive intenders that we defined earlier, who are people who are thinking about taking their break in Scotland. So if we look at the graph on the left, first of all, we can see that for our people who are intending coming to Scotland, that rural coastline and countryside and villages are the much preferred options for this summer trip. For UK intenders, you can see countryside or village, but also traditional coastal and seaside towns are popular for people thinking about breaks within the UK as a whole. The cities or large towns are of lesser preference during the summer period. That's because maybe people want to get out of these places and into the countryside, or it might be that there's a higher perceived risk for cities right now and during the summer. If we look at the graph on the right from October, good news for cities or large towns is that they seem to rebound, with almost a third of people wanting to come to Scotland and choosing that as an option. Again, for UK intenders, it's also important. Maybe people are starting to think about their Christmas shopping, and who knows. Countryside or village is still fairly important, obviously, and the others seem to have got lesser importance than they were over the summer. So we've looked at what type of destination people are thinking about when they want to go on their next holiday, but where in the UK do they actually want to go? And once again, we're looking at the two time periods. This first slide looks at the summer period, June to September, and we're looking at residents of the UK and residents of Scotland. The Scotland residents are in the yellow bar there. So you can see that for UK residents, the southwest of England, Cornwall and Devon, for example, are the places that people are most wanting to go. However, Scotland is actually in second place for UK residents, although you can see that there's very little difference between the top 4 or 5 destinations there. But we've always consistently had the second place, looking on a week-by-week average. However, for Scotland residents, and this is backed up by the 56-degree insight work as well, most Scotland residents, 61% over the summer, are thinking about staying in Scotland, which is great news for our most important audience right now. So when we look at the autumn period, where are people thinking that they might go? The first thing to say is there is a little bit more uncertainty in people's minds about where they might go in October. And at the very right-hand side of the chart, you can see that there's quite a large percentage who don't know where they're going to go yet. However, the southwest and Scotland are still the top 2 destinations, and Scotland actually has a clearer lead for October onwards, which does link with everything we've said so far about confidence and when people are planning taking their breaks. For Scots themselves, it's slightly less than those who said they were going to stay in Scotland over the summer. So, but a bigger proportion are undecided about where they're going to go. We may have some people who are thinking maybe we might be able to go abroad by that point, but it's generally quite a positive picture for Scotland that we're such a desirable destination. So now we're going to look at whereabouts in Scotland people are thinking about staying on their next trip. And we're looking at the 2 time periods of between June and September and from October onwards. We're looking at Scotland intenders from the rest of the UK, as well as our Scotland residents. So Scotland residents are in yellow on the graphs, and our Scotland intenders are in purple. If we look at Scotland residents, first of all, the graph on the left, you can see that the Highlands are by far the most desirable location, followed by the Scottish Isles and the West Coast. A little word of caution here, our sample size for Scotland residents for the summer period, and we know that less people are thinking about travelling over the main summer period than later in the year. Our sample size is a little bit low here, but I think this makes perfect common sense that these are the areas that people want to go to, as well as other research such as the 56-degree insight research, which shows that the more rural countryside locations, mountains and hills are the places that people in Scotland want to visit. For UK, from Scotland intenders from the rest of the UK, again, Highlands is the #1 desirable location. But also Edinburgh comes in here, despite people saying that they didn't really want to visit cities, a proportion do. And I also think Edinburgh has a different perception to a normal city, in that people think it's more rural than it perhaps is. If we look at October onwards, the picture does change slightly. And although the Highlands is still popular, you can see there that for both Scotland intenders and Scotland residents, the cities start to come more to the fore. And we saw this when we looked at the type of destination people were looking at later in the year. So for Edinburgh, Scotland intenders, it rises to 35%, and for Glasgow, 18%. So that is promising for our cities in the more autumnal months. This slide looks at the type of accommodation that people are thinking about when they take their next break. And the slides are in the same format. The graph on the left is looking at people travelling in the June to September period, and the graph on the right is looking at from October 2020. And once again, we're looking at UK intenders and Scotland exclusive intenders, who are the ones in yellow, and people who are exclusively thinking about coming to Scotland. So if we look at the June to September graph on the left, first of all, you can see that the primary accommodation type that most people have chosen is caravan camping, glamping. And that is also important to note for that a lot of people with lower disposable incomes and younger people are choosing that as an option. When we looked at the demographics of our intenders, we saw that there were a large swathe of younger people who were considering Scotland, and it looks like caravanning is the way they hope to do that, or camping. Next to that is someone's private home, and that is either staying with friends and family or perhaps renting an Airbnb. Hotel is third on the list here. And it's quite interesting because at the beginning of the tracking, we were a bit concerned that hotel was right up at the #1 choice, and that didn't reflect other insight that we were seeing at the time. I think that is linked to, at the beginning of the study, people thought life would return to normal far quicker than it has transpired to do. So people thought they could probably stay in a hotel sooner than they were able to do. Following that, commercial property rentals, so our self-catering properties, are still a very popular choice because of the control that gives people. And then other services such as farmhouse, guest house and B&Bs come alongside that, with 11% choosing that as an option. If we look at the October 2020 figures, you can see immediately that hotel has risen to the #1 choice. People are more confident thinking about October. And I think some people, it's not actually a holiday unless they can enjoy the comforts of a hotel and other people looking after them. Commercial property rental, such as self-catering, is still popular. However, probably people who are considering taking a slightly longer holiday may think of a nice October break or a later break in a self-catering accommodation. And then someone's private home, again, staying with friends and family, not quite as popular as it was for over the summer. I suspect a lot of people will not have seen friends and family for some time. And then camping is next on the list, followed by our farmhouse and B&Bs, which encouragingly has risen to 23% of people who would consider that as an option for October. So we're now going to have a look at how people are thinking about booking their accommodation for their trip. And this first slide looks at the summer period from June to September. So once again, we're looking at our UK intenders, people taking a break somewhere in the UK, and people who are exclusively thinking about coming to Scotland in yellow. So you can see there that directly with the accommodation is the primary method that people are thinking about booking. 49% for those exclusively thinking about coming to Scotland are going to book direct. The next most common booking channel is through an OTA, an online travel website, with almost a quarter of UK intenders still using these sites, and just over a fifth of people coming to Scotland will use an OTA. The homestay website for Scotland intenders is also important, and we saw earlier how people's choice of accommodation was staying in someone's private home, so things like Airbnb are still popular at this stage. So looking at the October onwards period, if we concentrate on the Scotland exclusive intenders, the bars in yellow, you can see that well over a third are still thinking about booking directly with accommodation, with almost 3 in 10 thinking about using an OTA, an online travel agent. However, other ways of booking, such as using a traditional travel agent or tour operator, still quite popular at 14%. And again, homestay websites such as Airbnb also popular. Some people, if you go to the right-hand side of the chart, are thinking they will just turn up, and there is evidence that people will stay with friends or with family that they might not have seen for a while. And obviously, there is a proportion who still don't know how they're going to book their trip because they're still thinking about it. So if we look at how people are planning to get to their next break, how are they planning to travel there? And once again, we're looking at the summer period, June to September on the left and October onwards on the right. For those people who are Scotland exclusive intenders, people who are exclusively coming to Scotland, the bar in the yellow there, you can see that both for the summer and further in the autumn, the car is the preferred way of travelling. I don't think that will come as a surprise to any of us. There is a smaller proportion in the summer who will think they will come to Scotland by train, 13% there, and an even smaller proportion, 5%, who will travel by flight to get here. If we look at the graph on the right for the autumn, again, as I said, the car is still used by more than half of people planning to come here. But train and plane have both increased slightly, and we are talking small numbers here, but there's definitely an increase in these more non-driving forms of transport. The final slide in this section, we are looking at people's plans to do activities when on their next break. And we've asked people what activities they are more or less likely to do. So once again, we're looking at 3 different groups of people: UK residents, which are the bars in black, Scotland residents, which are the bars in yellow, and our Scotland exclusive intenders, which are the bars in grey, which are the ones I'm going to talk you through at the moment. So if we look at the left of the graph, you can see that 56% of our intenders for Scotland are going to concentrate their activities in outdoor areas, beaches, mountains and trails, which won't come as a surprise to anybody. People want to be out in the fresh air. Alongside that, we've got outdoor leisure and sporting activities such as walking and cycling, which people are also much more likely to do. Still slightly positively, we're seeing people more likely to do outdoor attractions such as theme parks and zoos, which is great. We know Edinburgh Zoo opened yesterday, so hopefully they've got some visitors. Things that people are less likely to do are things like entertainment and events, which are primarily indoors. So 14% saying they're much less likely to do these things, which is interesting when you think back to the barriers we talked about. One of the reasons people didn't want to go on holiday was because of the lack of access to these things. But they're telling us that they're also less likely to want to do these things at the moment. Health and wellbeing activities as well, much less likely to do. We don't obviously know when these are going to open: spa and beauty salons at the moment, and indoor swimming. And indoor attractions, 19% of people less likely to do indoor attractions, although we do have dates for opening for museums and galleries at the moment. I hope the situation changes as the tracking information moves forward. These are obviously very important cultural assets to Scotland, and I hope people's views will change as their confidence grows. The final slide I'm going to cover today is about the reassurance and support people are looking for when they do stay in paid-for accommodation. This is at a UK level, so this is what UK residents told us. And there are very little differences in the sub-segments. Generally, people are looking for the same things. What we've done here, we gave people quite a long list, but what we've done here is we've grouped everything into 4 main categories. So the first of which is vital and important to everybody with 85%, is about reducing cross-contamination. So that's things like making sure the place you're staying at has enhanced cleaning, and they're demonstrating that enhanced cleaning, sanitising, hand gel available at all times, even things like using your own device as a room key have been mentioned by people. The second area that's important is about social distancing, and people are looking for measures to be put in place showing what the minimum distance should be, a cap on the number of people allowed within the premises, and generally control of numbers so that there's no overcrowding. The third thing is about staff and guest health checks, mentioned by 64% of people, and that's things like checking visitor and staff temperatures daily and people wearing face masks to protect each other. And the final thing, although not as important as the first 3 categories, but still mentioned by more than half of respondents, was about cleanliness standards. So that's where a hotel brand has specific cleanliness measures, or a government scheme that is recommending a specific standard of cleanliness. So all of these things are universally important to everyone to keep everybody safe when they're travelling. Okay, that was all I was going to cover today. I appreciate there was a lot of information on some of those slides, but hopefully it gave you some insight as to the current mood of the UK nation. For more information, we are publishing as quickly as we can all the results on VisitScotland.org, and the weekly results are going up the week after the fieldwork has been completed at a UK level. And every 2 weeks, when we have enough sample, we are doing our Scotland Intenders and Residents analysis. This report will go up on the website today. There's also the UK level reports on Visit Britain, and they also have the data tables for the research up there if anyone wants to do any sub-analysis on the data. And I also do a written word summary of the results every week in our marketing intelligence paper.